You definitively state that they're not being properly trained. Do you know that?
They're shooting dogs. They're shooting dogs in people's that have been locked in people's bathrooms. They're abandoning small children alone in cars while they. No, it's not false. Look it up. Don't just say false.
Abby Phillip had a panel on her CNN show that included Anna Navarro, MAGA Scott Jennings, another MAGA pundit in Lydia Moynihan, and Dr. Cornel West to discuss requirements for ICE agents. We're seeing these reports that they're failing all kinds of physical tests and all kinds of other issues. This panel had a lot to say about it, so we're going to take a look at this debate and the comments from Anna Navarro, Scott Jennings, Cornel West, and the rest on Abby Phillip's show. I have thoughts to share on this as well. Let's check it out together.
Tonight, push-ups, sit-ups, and a 1.5 mile run are standing in the way of Donald Trump's plan to hire and train 10,000 ICE agents by January. Now, nearly a third of the recruits right now are failing ICE's personal fitness test. And despite lowering its standard to boost recruiting, it's causing the agency major headaches. It's pathetic, a career ICE official tells The Atlantic in an email to the agency's top officials that complains of a considerable amount of athletically allergic candidates, misrepresenting their physical condition on application forms. Now, what's more, these recruits are flunking basic civics exams. In a statement to CNN, DHS downplayed concerns and said that the numbers reflect a subset of candidates in initial basic academy classes. In the meantime, the Trump administration has cut the amount of time the recruits spend in training from 4 months down to just 8 weeks. And Anna Navarro, when you look at some of these interactions between ICE agents and the public, frankly, it's not entirely surprising that that's what's happening as they try to rush these people through the process of getting certified to be on the streets.
Okay, well, in all honesty, I'm athletically allergic. Could not pass the presidential exam when I was in school, could not do a pull-up for a nanosecond. That being said, look, I think this lack of not only the athletic aspect, but also the civics aspect is showing in the interactions we are seeing. There have been at least 170 U.S. citizens that have been detained by ICE. We have seen people get scooped up because they're black in Chicago, U.S. citizen blacks, put into U-Haul trucks, in the back of U-Haul trucks. We have seen teenagers pinned to the ground. We know that there have been more deaths in ICE custody, in the last few months than there were in the last 4 years. So, I would hope that even folks who are in favor of deporting everybody, I would hope that there would be some agreement that there needs to be rights, that there needs to be a process, that people need to be allowed to show ID, that they can't just be scooped up in that way and have their rights violated. It's just inhumane what we are seeing in the streets of America.
Or at least that the standards shouldn't be lowered just to meet a quota.
Okay, I just have to respond to this. If you are housing or living with somebody, an MS-13 or a gang member, it is very possible that you could get swept up in that. That is just a reality.
Listen, the vast majority of the people who have been detained do not have criminal records. 75%.
If you're living with a gang member, you gotta know that's a possibility.
That's the people that were scooped up in this residential building in the middle of the night. You're just making things up. You're making things up. Most of the people that have been detained do not have any criminal records or ties to gangs.
I'm sure you can find an example or two of this, but we also know the situations for a lot of these 170 Americans. And some of them were just happened to be in the same location as other people who might have been targeted by ICE and were still scooped up.
The teenage black boy I was referring to was in a CVS.
To Anna Navarro's point, that apartment building that they raided a couple of weeks ago that housed, frankly, mostly Americans, they only identified 2 alleged Tren de Aragua members. The rest of the people who were arrested, including American citizens, they're not gang members. So that's also happening.
Okay.
It doesn't matter to MAGA, Lydia Moynihan, Scott Jennings, the rest of them, these MAGA pundits, it doesn't matter to them. It's all about what they feel. Statistics don't matter. You can throw out all the statistics in the world. Abby Phillip and Anna Navarro can say, this happened, this happened, this happened. Yeah, but what about all the gang members? What about? It's amazing that the Republicans, that the right-wingers tried to play off as we're the facts over feelings people and F your feelings, when everything with them is all about feelings. You can present all the evidence in the world, and Lydia Moynihan and Scott Jennings are going to say, yeah, but what about this? This is what I feel. That's your opinion. Facts they don't understand, or they do understand and they just spin it. The difference between facts and opinions. We see this every night on these shows, on Abby Phillip's show and these other talking head shows that MAGA people like Scott Jennings go on. And I've said this before on my show. The numbers that come up when you do any kind of search is there are maybe about 600 Trende Aragua people in the United States. But Lydia Moynihan would lead you to believe that, there's one probably in your closet right now. I mean, it's just insanity and propaganda.
But I was asking you about the standards, because the issue at hand here is that the standards are not being met, and B, in some cases, are being slightly lowered to allow more people to get through this process because they have to meet a quota. And when you're talking about law enforcement, is that really what we should be doing?
No, absolutely not. And unfortunately, this is not really an ICE problem. This is a problem across the board. I think as many as 80% of police officers are overweight. And so we've seen standards just decrease across the board. Now, my understanding is that they aren't decreasing the standards. They're just saying that a lot of people are failing. And I think that's okay, right? They have a lot of people who are interested in joining. Not all of them are going to meet the criteria. And that's the reality. They're
literally decreasing the standard if they cut the training time from, what did Abby Phillip say, 4 months down to 8 weeks? That's decreasing a standard.
A lot of people are joining because a lot of people need jobs. A lot of people are failing because we don't teach civic in schools, and that's a problem. And
they're offering $50,000 bonuses.
A lot of people are taking the job because there's student loan forgiveness. And I hope they don't lower the standard, because the last I checked, it was the DEI candidates that needed the standard lowered. But now it seems like the people who want to work for ICE might get their standards. Let's just see how this all plays out.
That's not what's happening. They're failing. The system is working. They have fitness standards. They have standards for civics. If you fail the standards, you don't get in. So the story is that you have a system in place designed to weed people out who shouldn't be in, and it's working. That's a good thing.
I will say this. So here's what we know, at least for now. In February, the requirements were this: 32 sit-ups in a minute or less, 22 push-ups in a minute or less, 220-yard sprint, 1.5 mile run. Now, the standard is 15 push-ups as opposed to 22. So it's still 32 sit-ups, 1.5 miles, in slightly less time than before. So there's been a slight adjustment. Who knows why? You need to do 7 fewer push-ups than before, but
the standards were lowered.
You still have to meet an athletic standard, and you still have to meet a civic standard.
So they lowered the standard.
But standard's still declining.
I also think, to me, also the civics part is huge, because knowing people's rights in this country is part of what you need to know if you're going to be violating them potentially as a law enforcement officer, or at least you have the power to do that.
But there was another claim tucked into that report, which is the people themselves are misrepresenting themselves. You say they're lying. See, that's a decline of standards too. It's a matter of character. It's a matter of soul craft. So it's not just you got a decline of standards across the board, and too often you want to scapegoat the most vulnerable. It must be the black folk and brown folk responsible for the decline of standards. No, get off the crack pipe. That's not true at all. What's really true is the decline of standards across the board, and people acting as if they're so athletically on the cutting edge, and when it's time to take the test, they can't pass it.
And if you lie on your application, perhaps you lie on the job.
Well, just today there was an ICE police officer whose weapon discharged and injured a U.S. Marshal and the suspect, because they were using the service weapon to bang on the window of a suspect. I mean, I don't know. I mean, these are the types of things that just seem like, is there proper training happening here when it comes to ICE?
There's not. We've all seen it. And there should be.
You definitively state that they're not being properly trained. Do you know that?
They're shooting dogs. They're shooting dogs in people's that have been locked in people's bathrooms. They're abandoning small children alone in cars while they. No, it's not false. Look it up. Don't just say false. I actually
abandoning small children. They turned the children over to HHS.
There were actually small children abandoned in a highway in a car in Cicero, Illinois.
You make these sweeping statements that they're not training.
Would you like me
they're
to
not
get
training ICE agents. Of course
with
they go through
examples
training.
of what is happening?
Of course they're training them.
Well, they're training them, then they're not learning this stuff. They're definitely violating human rights, Scott.
So this also is Scott Jennings and MAGA in a nutshell to me. Scott Jennings, I mean, the hubris of Scott Jennings to say, you just make things up and you just share these anecdotes, which is what Scott Jennings does every night on Abby Phillip show. I was so hoping, it doesn't look like it's going to happen. I was so hoping that Abby Phillip would do a follow-up after the No Kings rallies with Scott Jennings, because all he said leading up was, these people are terrorists and they're Hamas and they're communists and they're Antifa and they're violent. You know, we know this is going to be violent. I hope it's not too violent. You know, maybe a few of these people are peaceful, but they're mostly violent. Just BS, just made up out of whole cloth from Scott Jennings. And I haven't seen him come out and say, you know what, I was wrong. I disagree with those people. I think they're misguided in what they did, but it turned out to be pretty peaceful. I wish Scott Jennings would have been asked that on Abby Phillip show, but it looks like that's going to pass by. But Anna Navarro brings up these specific incidents. Yeah, you know, I don't believe that. I think you're just making stuff up. Facts don't matter to MAGA and Scott Jennings. And back to Lydia Moynihan with they didn't lower the standards, and literally Abby Phillip shows a chart of how they reduce the standards in the amount of push-ups that they have to do, the amount of sit-ups, how fast they have to run, all of that, and nothing. But that's MAGA. In terms of reducing the standards, think about the quality of people or lack of quality that the people would have, lack of morality, like Dr. Cornel West is talking about here. Imagine wanting to be an ICE agent, knowing what's happening in our country. What kind of sick person would actually apply now to be an ICE agent? They're lowering these standards because it has to be hard to get people. You know, even maybe some people who would be sympathetic to this would just be like, gee, I don't want to have to tell people that I'm an ICE agent. I mean, imagine what some of the friends and family and people in the community of these creeps, these ICE creeps, what people would think of them. So you're getting the bottom of the barrel type candidates to go and do this kind of work. I mean, that's why they have to offer $50,000 bonuses to them. But let me know what you think about all this. Do you agree with what Abby Phillip, Anna Navarro, Dr. Cornel West had to say, or are you on the side of the MAGA pundits in Scott Jennings and Lydia Moynihan, the facts over feeling MAGA people? Let me know in the comments what you think. Make sure to give me a like and subscribe. I am Chris on Culture, and I'll see you in the next video.